My name is Björk, and your television is just about to explode!
When I say the word punk, what comes into your head? Is it Liberty Spikes and mohawks? Is it torn fishnets and jeans? Perhaps Spencer's or Hot Topic? I don't know. Whatever it is, I want you to keep it in your head. We'll come back to it. I'm gonna show you a video that I think of a lot when it comes to punk. You'll see why.
Nazi punks, fuck off, take 3.
Back in the religious cult, from singing for yourself. And hardcore when you got your hair when a jock still lives inside your head. Nazi punks, Nazi punks, Nazi punks, fuck off! Nazi punks, Nazi punks, Nazi punks, fuck off! It's guns upside, get out of here! You're no better than the bouncers! We ain't trying to be police when you ain't the cops, it ain't anarchy! Nazi punks, Nazi punks, Nazi punks, fuck off! Nazi punks, Nazi punks, Nazi punks, fuck off!
Now, you might be wondering, who the hell are these guys? Well, we got DH Peligro on drums, East Bay Ray on guitar, Klaus Fluoride on bass, and Jello Biafra on vocals. These 4 make up the punk rock band Dead Kennedys. Now, with that image of punk in your head, I really want you to take a look at these guys. DH is posted up like he's about to go to Applebee's, Ray looks like the star member of a bowling team, Jello is shirtless, and Klaus is wearing those fucking glasses. Yet, despite any preconceptions people might have about punk, Dead Kennedys is the truest form of punk there is. This is the part of the video where I'm supposed to read the definition of punk on Google, but I'm not doing that because every time someone does, they're missing out on the true complexity of it. Yes, punk is a style of rock music pioneered in the 1970s by bands like the Ramones and the Sex Pistols, but you cannot separate the way punk sounds from the way it thinks, the way it acts, and the things that it does. Because punk is, first and foremost, a movement, and movements often cannot be described in simple sentences. Too often does our culture rely on specific definitions that are inherently constraining. And hell, I'm guilty of this too. Tell me you think a band sounds indie, and I'll yap your off about how it's actually soft rock or underground. Still, what the hell is punk, and why am I so passionate about it? Well, if I had to describe it, in general, punk is often characterized by radical leftism, with anarchism being the most common form. Now, that sounds pretty broad, right? Well, it's kind of supposed to be. Again, punk is not the way you dress or the music you listen to. You could dress up like Cinderella and spend all your free time frolicking in a flower field for all I care. What matters is the causes you advocate for and against. So with that in mind, I'm going to play you the song from earlier again. But this time, I want you to really pay attention to the lyrics.
Back in the religious cult, from singing for yourself. And hardcore when you got your hair when a jock still lives inside your head. Nazi punks, Nazi punks, Nazi punks, fuck off! Nazi punks, Nazi punks, Nazi punks, fuck off! It's guns upside, get out of here! You're no better than the bouncers! We ain't trying to be police when you ain't the cops, it ain't anarchy!
Punk ain't no religious cult. Punk means thinking for yourself. You ain't hardcore when you spike your hair, when a jock still lives inside your head. Keep those words in mind, because they're gonna be very important later, but for now, let's move on. There's something you gotta understand about Dead Kennedys, and it's that they were by no means the foundations of punk, at least not back then. They were most popular in the 80s, while bands like the Ramones and the Clash were more dominant in the 70s. A lot of DK's music doesn't develop the messaging behind punk as much as it does re-examine it. You see this on songs like California Uber Allies and Holiday in Cambodia, which criticize other progressive movements from the time. And in general, it all feels like a sort of second wave of punk.
Say you've been to school for a year or two and you know you've seen it all. And that is cool, thinking you'll go far back east in time, don't crawl.
This is also reflected in how they sound. Their music is a mix between more traditional East Coast punk rock with more West Coast sounding surf rock. This combined with Jello's over-the-top delivery gives them a really unique sound for their time. Jello's eccentric personality is best shown in the skits that they put on their albums. My personal favorite being Night of the Living Rednecks, where Jello tells a story about throwing a rock at a rich kid's car.
They said, "Hey, faggot, where's the nearest McDonald's?" I said, "I don't know." And they squirted me again. So I threw the rock and put a nice sized dent in their giant Hot Wheels car.
But going back to the actual content of their songs, a lot of it is a satirization of American culture. They have a lot of songs that are sung from the perspective of a rich kid or a sellout like Terminal Preppy.
My ambition in life is to look good on paper. All I want is a slot in some big corporation.
The ones that don't are either very angry or very teasing towards the groups that they target. You can see the anger on something like Life Sentence, which goes after people that don't really pay attention to the world around them and instead just focus in on school.
Chain the dog fixed in a yard. Don't see much, you can't go far. Case of frost, you're getting sick. Run too fast, I'll stop your neck.
Meanwhile, the teasing can be seen on something like Forest Fire, which almost fantasizes about burning a rich person's mansion down and watching them either lose all their stuff or be trapped inside. I can't really say the song resonates with me though. And circling back to Nazi Punk's Fuck Off, that song is about the, at the time, very real problem of neo-Nazi skinheads going to punk shows and trying to get friendly with the other patrons. These skinheads assumed that they were welcome in these spaces when they very much weren't. So there was a need to make sure that punks were as far removed from Nazis as possible. Who the hell is that? The Sex Pistols were a British punk band that was active from 1975 to 1978. They're widely considered one of the foundations of punk rock, and their influence on the scene, especially on the fashion, is still seen today. They are some of the biggest posers punk has ever seen. The founder of the Sex Pistols was a man named Malcolm McLaren. He's not the singer, he's not the drummer, he's not the bassist, and he's not the guitarist. He's the manager. McLaren owned a boutique clothing store by the name of Sex, inspired by the punk rock movements that he was very much not involved in. Sex was infamous for selling clothing that was incredibly offensive, stripped down, and unconventional. As McLaren watched his business explode, he began looking for a band that would be up to serve as ambassadors for the brand, which he would end up creating himself. Originally starting with a band called The Strands, led by guitarist Steve Jones, McLaren would shuffle the band around until he had a collection of the most hopeless, desperate people in London. McLaren would build up the band's reputation doing publicity stunts that didn't push the message of punk as much as they did rage bait old British men. And to be fair, that does sound fun as hell, but that's not what punk is. Still, all of this would draw massive amounts of attention to the band, including the ire of EMI. They would sign to them in 1976. The band would ultimately break up in 1979, and to this day they're remembered as the voice of the British working class, when all they ever were was an investment for some businessman to drive the profits of his shitty clothing store. Punk has always been overrun with people that try to use the aesthetics of it as a way to make money, and it always will be. That's why it's so important for us to define what punk is and push away what it isn't. Otherwise, we risk it becoming exactly what it's meant to criticize. This isn't to say that the gatekeeping of punk is always completely righteous. For every leather-clad, Liberty Spikes covered freak on TikTok, there's 20 white men that refuse to listen to anything recorded after 1996, but we still need to keep our identity. And it is with knowledge of that identity that I can confidently say that Dead Kennedys is the truest form of punk there is. What the hell is that? You might be wondering what the asterisk has been about, and well, it's because they sold out. Dead Kennedys would ultimately break up in 1986. There's a lot of conflicting accounts as to why, Most of the band said it was because that the punk scene was becoming too violent for them, but I choose to believe Jello's telling of it. According to him, it was because the rest of the band was suing him for withholding royalties. Sounds bad, right? Well, what they really meant by that was that he didn't want the band's music to appear in fucking Levi's commercials, completely antithetical to their beliefs. The band would go their separate ways. Jello specifically actually became a Green Party politician, and for a while it just looked like they were just going to be another relic from the 80s. Until 2001, the band would reform without Jello, and instead they would start rotating between a bunch of singers that aren't him. They've been reduced to a touring band, and they haven't recorded a single new piece of music since their initial breakup. It was the worst thing, the second worst thing to happen that year. Dead Kennedys, for all intents and purposes, have completely lost what made them so special to begin with. So, unfortunately, I cannot say with 100% certainty that Dead Kennedys is currently the truest form of punk there is. But it's not all bad. I touched on this a little bit in my interview with Jay Vale, but there are still so many bands that carry on the spirit of what punk is. There's obviously the three I mentioned in that video, but there's also the Rex, Necto, Disenfutured, and so many more. You just have to find them. I hope that I've made one thing clear on this channel, and it's to diversify your music taste. Don't just listen to one genre or artist. You gotta mess around a bit, you know? Have fun. Hell, while writing this freaking video, I'm listening to freaking Birdland by Weather Report. Do whatever you want, man. Punk has always been underground and esoteric. That's literally the point. So please, if you want real, actual, good punk music, don't just listen to me. Go out there and find it. You'll find some amazing stuff. So with that said, thanks for watching. I'm a punk rocker, yes I am, and I'll see you around.